Hi there, I'm Nancy Nash with Starfish Strength. Today, I want to show you how to use a BOSU to take your stretching routine to the next level. So for our routine today, you'll need a BOSU and enough space to lay down on the floor and make a snow angel. And then I'll also show you how to use a resistance band or a yoga strap to get a little deeper into some of these stretches. And as always, don't forget to have some water handy. So I'm a big believer in using what you have. So not only do I suggest if you don't have a resistance band, finding something around the house that works just as well. If you don't have a BOSU, find a short stool or a couple pillows, firm ones probably, that will work for this. And you can still get the benefit of these elevated stretches. I've actually even sat on the bottom stair in my house and had this work. So just use what you have. So I'm going to come into a straddle stretch. Now, your straddle might look like this, and that's okay. We're not all going to feel like we can just do the splits immediately. That is not what we're trying to do here. You want to come into a position that feels like a 7 or 8 out of a 10 if you were to rate your stretch feeling. You can feel a gentle pull on the inner thighs, but it doesn't feel like it's just yanking or muscles are going to start spasming. So again, if you need to move the legs a little bit closer together, if you need to bend the knees a little bit here, that is a-okay. Now, if I recline, this also takes some stress off the legs. So you could optionally put something behind you. That's where doing this on the stairs actually works really well. But I like the BOSU because it gives you a little more flexibility. You're going to actually feel if you shift more weight into one hip versus the other. So just do your best to try to find that equal engagement, right to left. I'm going to focus on sitting up nice and straight. So I've got the shoulders right above the hips, drawing in the belly a little bit, thinking about like an imaginary string, taking my spine and stretching it slightly so that my head's going to reach the ceiling. And then you can kind of think about gently pushing through the heels. And that's going to give me a little bit more active stretch in the back of the legs rather than just leaving that passive. And even if you're bending your knees a little bit, you should feel that increased stretch into the ankle and the calves. Now, if you do have a resistance band, this is where I could take the resistance band and put it right around the arch of one of my feet. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to push through that heel. I'm going to think about that imaginary string straightening my spine. And if this is not enough stretch for you and you need something deeper, that's where you're going to hinge from the waist towards that leg. Now, I'm not going to just reach with the shoulders because this isn't a shoulder stretch. This is really a leg stretch, the back of the leg, the back of the hips. Then I might even feel a little bit of a stretch on the opposite side. So let yourself come back to center and try that on the other side. And even if you don't have this band, you could just reach your hand down and you might feel that increased stretch in the back of the leg and into the side. I might also feel this in the lower back, which is my hip flexor area. So it's not a bad thing. Again, we just want to measure that stretch. Make sure it's a 7 out of 10. It's not, like an 11 out of 10 that feels like a big yank. That would tell me to sit back. All right, so taking this to our next stretch, we're going to do an elevated butterfly stretch. So I'm going to walk both of my feet in towards one another to face one another. As we were just talking about, I might be shifting more weight into one hip than the other. So see if you can kind of sit in the center of the BOSU and just find that even engagement left to right. And then think about sitting up nice and straight. I can also think about actively pulling my heels back towards myself. And if this doesn't feel like much of a stretch to your inner thighs, your hips, or your lower back, that's where I might scoot yourself forward a little bit. And then you might find that gravity just kind of helps you with that stretch. And if you need even more, then you could hinge from the waist. And that's actually where I bring our band in here. So I'm going to take the band and put it around my feet. And now I can use the band for a little extra resistance and leverage. I'm going to pull my shoulders back and then just gently push on my inner thighs with my forearms. And now I should really feel an intense stretch on the inner thighs, the groin area, and the lower back. And even though I'm saying intense, please keep it at a 7 or 8 out of 10. We're not trying to force anything. We want to be gentle with those inner thigh muscles, but this is definitely going to help our alignment. Whether you're someone that works out all the time and you're squatting, or you're just trying to prevent knee pain in day-to-day life, this is a great stretch to get into that hip. And then after you've held for 7 to 10 seconds, I'm going to have you go ahead and straighten both legs in front of you. And we're going to do more of a forward fold stretch. So I probably want to center myself on the BOSU again. And I'm going to take the band, if I have it, and put it around the arches of the feet. And I'm going to sit up nice and straight, focusing on keeping the shoulders above the hips. And then the other thing I want to make sure is that I don't get a reverse bend in my knee. I've worked a lot on my hamstring strength, so I can only hyperextend to a point at this point. But you want to make sure that you're just at straight, or even slightly bent is okay. So you should still feel the tension in the muscles. As soon as it leaves the muscles, you're really going to know you're hyperextended if you can't feel it in your hamstrings. All right, so keep the tension on the muscles. Protect those joints, and then just think more about pulling your toes back towards you. And then if you don't have this band, that's okay too. I can think still about flexing the toes back towards me. I could hinge from the waist a little bit more if I need to increase the stretch. And I could even do that forward fold, reach the arms up. And then this is like the box reach in gym class, right? So I'm just going to fold from the waist. I might reach, obviously I'm pretty flexible. I could reach beyond my toes, but I could also just hold on to the thighs and just flex from the waist. I can keep my hands on the floor, give myself a little more stability, and hinge from the waist. So take the option that works best for you. Again, you don't have to do this deep of a stretch, right? Even just trying to straighten my legs and pull the toes back might be plenty for the back of your legs. So we're going to do one more seated stretch here. So this time I want to bend both knees. You're going to want to actually push your butt kind of towards the side that your feet are on, just to balance your weight. And then I'm going to put my weight into that hip, and I'm going to bring the feet back. So I still want to feel balanced here, but I'm actually going to do a seated twist. So there are a lot of variations to this stretch to make it work for you. What I should feel is a stretch in the outside of that top hip, maybe in the outside of both hips. If you don't feel that, let yourself turn back. You can bring the feet a little further apart and then try that twist again. So I do want to make sure that I'm keeping my spine pretty straight as I'm twisting. If this felt, undoable to twist at all, that's where I might kind of lean over and then twist. And that might feel more manageable for you. But if I can, I'm going to keep in that seated position with the spine nice and straight and do that twist. The other variation that might help you feel a better hip stretch is to tuck the feet further back, bring the knees a little closer to the floor, and then twist away. Now again, I'm pretty tall, so take the support you need. I feel like, it's really helpful to have something like this to get into assisted stretches. But if you need more stability, you could always bring over a stool, bring over something you can hold on to and have more stability to help you get into that twist. All right, so hopefully that outside hip feels pretty good at this point. Let yourself twist back, and we're going to switch sides. So I'm just going to suggest, as much as you can, you move the knees together. You might feel like a little awkward hop getting to the other side, but moving the knees together as much as you can will protect them. So again, I'm going to shift my weight a little bit towards the side my feet are on. I'm going to bend my knees and tuck the feet back as far as feels reasonable for me. Draw the belly in, straighten the spine, and then twist away from that hip. And hopefully notice that I have a pretty good stretch in the front and side of that hip, and maybe on the side of the opposite hip. Now, again, if you feel it in the lower back, that's also great. We're still stretching those hip flexor muscles. And if you watch some of my other videos, you probably know that the hip flexor muscles kind of braid into that lower back. And a lot of time when we feel lower back discomfort, we're actually stretching our hips. So we just want to make sure that we're not brutally stretching those muscles. We're just gently stretching them. So if you need to twist back a little, if it doesn't feel like you're twisting that much, but you feel a stretch, you're on the right track. And then with each of these stretches, I would try to hold them for 7 to 10 seconds. There's actually a mechanism in your tendon called the Golgi tendon organ that will help you get a little further into that stretch after that 10-second mark. And then I might hold it for another 10 seconds. You can hold these longer than that, but we're not wanting anybody's muscles to spasm. If you're not someone that stretches on a regular basis, really be easy with yourself the first time you do this and see how you feel the next day before you decide to hold these stretches longer than 20 or 30 seconds. All right, so for our last stretch here, you may want something on your side that you can kind of use to balance yourself, whether that's a chair, or you've got a foam roller that you could just put your hand on. We're going to do a half kneeling stretch and get into the front of the hip and the thigh a little bit more. So you want to make sure, that you feel comfortable putting your knee on here without pain. I do have another video that does this with a towel underneath your knee. So if you're finding this is uncomfortable, I'll leave a link to that below and check that version out. But provided this is comfortable for you, I'm going to try to think about moving both of my hips at the same time. So I don't want to start with one hip forward. I actually want to make sure that this knee doesn't go past the toes. So I'm stretching the hips and not overextending the knee. So I'm going to draw the belly in a little bit and then push both hips forward together. I should feel a really good stretch in the front of that thigh and hip. And then as much as I can, I'm trying to keep the shoulders above the hips. Might not be perfect, but the moment I kind of bend at the waist, you can tell that really changes the stretch. Stop feeling it in the front. So if it helps, you can put both hands on your thigh, kind of push into that foot, pushing into the floor, and then push into the hands to straighten the spine as you shift those hips forward. And again, if you really find a balance challenge here, make sure you've got something you can hold on to on the side. All right, so slowly let yourself come out of that. We're going to switch and do that on the other side. All right, so in that half kneeling position on the other side, again, I want to square my hips with my shoulders and make sure my ankle's just a little ahead of my knee. Draw the belly in and then shift the hips forward together and put a lot more weight in that forward leg. I can push into my hands as I push into the foot that's on the floor. My right hip is definitely a little bit tighter. I can not only feel this in the front of the hip flexors and in the quads, but I can also feel this in the adductors. Those are the muscles we were stretching with that seated straddle and the butterfly stretch. So, just kind of note what feels different on this side. And, you just want to push to that 7 or 8 out of 10 stretch feeling. So if something doesn't feel right, let yourself push the hips back, reset, come out of this and come back in if you need to. And then slowly come back in. And hopefully the second time around, you find that this feels just a little bit smoother. And if you're diligent with this and practicing this a couple times a week, you should notice that your hips, your lower back, your ankles, and your knees all feel a little less cranky. Thanks so much for making time to stretch with me today. I hope you feel more flexible and better set up going into everything you have planned for your week. If you're looking for more stretching tips, exercises, workouts, healthy recipes, or other healthy living inspiration, please check out the rest of my YouTube channel. If you need some one-on-one support putting together your exercise program or nutrition plan, please reach out to me in the link in the description. And in the meantime, I look forward to continuing this journey with you, and I'll see you in the next video. Two helpers. I don't even know what to do with all this help. Yeah. Okay, show us your up dog. What else you got? Huh? Can you show us your tippy tappies? What do you think, Luna? Huh? Yeah, work on your back strength. Push yourself up. Good girl. Work on your back strength. Ready? Good girl. Yeah. Are you going to show off? Can you show off your back strength? Huh? I know, you can almost stand, huh? Strong cores in this family.